My name is Vincent Spruit, and today we're going to talk about the current situation of data, specifically in big organizations in the world. Sometimes, looking from the outside, we think they have everything completely in order, but it's usually not the case. We are here to talk about developments we see in the market, about what's going wrong, and what is less known to us, the public. In short, what are the dirty little data secrets that companies are not telling us? Today with me is Johann from Biljon, a freelance data specialist with over 25 years of experience. You started your career in '96 in South Africa as a programmer and software developer.
Yeah.
You since then worked for companies like Oracle, Capgemini, Deloitte, Rabobank, Elsevier, and most recently Shell, just to name a few. Always with a strong focus at data, from data management consultant to data program manager to enterprise data architect. You have seen the development of data from close in leading companies, and I think it's safe to say that you know a thing or two about data.
I think I started my career as a pure techie, and I moved into a more business focused role for about 10 years, and nowadays I'm back smack bang in IT, and I'm loving it.
Back in the tech.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, well, let's dive into those dirty little secrets a little bit later. But first, most companies they know right now how to, or that they need to create value out of data. They have complete data departments, and they have a CDO leading it. What is your opinion on this development that you're seeing?
Yeah, look, I think it's a good thing. I mean, I've been in data long enough that I think I've seen the ups and downs of it. So when I really started getting interested in specializing in data, this was in 2008, roughly. Um, when you started talking about to people about semantics and about data dictionaries and business dictionaries, they looked at you like you're an idiot, and they were not very interested in what you had to say because that's just not the stuff we talk about. And I've made the whole revolution, I think, to where it became a massive hype in about 2013, 14, 15. And to where we are now, I think where we are maybe swinging back a little bit again, where we are looking, is this really what we want to do? Does this really work? So yeah, it's been an interesting ride. I think where we are today is that I think on the board level, and I think in most people working in organizations understand that there's value in data, and they understand what it can be used for. I think we've all seen what ChatGTP can do. We've seen also what we can do with compliance and all the bad things you can do with data. So I think people are much more aware of what the power of data is.
Hmm?
But I do think that there are very few organizations that have it really under control. It is such a big monster, and we have such a backlog of bad decisions over the past probably almost 30 years that we have to fix, that we have to address. That it's not something that you fix within 1 or 2 years after you employ a CDO and you build a chief data office and you decide the data is important. There's a massive mess that needs to be cleaned up, and it's tough.
So, can you give an example of what this mess is, or what bad choices did we make?
Yeah. So what you see nowadays is that CDOs are brought into organizations, or the concept of data office is brought into an organization, but very often that focus is on analytics, and that is, I think, partially due to the way that IT organizations, vendors put themselves on the market. There's always a big hype around new tech that comes out, whether it's Click or whatever that might be, a new thing that comes out. And for some reason, that really resonates with people in decision making capacity. So they get excited about stuff. They see this as a silver bullet, and they go, "Well, guys, let's get this in there." And then you have people like me who love technology, and you just want to get onto the new tools and you want to play with it. And that kind of breeds an environment where we are focusing very much on the tail end of what data can do. And you see that a lot of people in data today are spending their days cleaning data sets, making sure that it can actually be fed into this new shiny tech that we bought to do
Yeah.
analytics with. And if we look at the state of data in organizations, it is most often not in good state. I think going back to 2009, 10, 11, at that time, it was it was the thing to have an enterprise data warehouse. Everyone was bringing all the data centrally into this mammoth warehousing concept to get the data out into a reporting solution. But if we look at what happened to all of those mammoth projects, I think 90% of them failed. I think very few of them ever realized that enterprise view. You would see that they would get them to stand in maybe in finance, or they would get them to stand up in operations. But I personally have not yet seen any enterprise data warehouse that actually succeeded. So what this resulted in is that if you really go lift the covers in organizations, is that you'll see that there is not one enterprise data warehouse. There are probably 30 or 50 of these things floating around in various states of maturity, in various states of completion. They do not speak the same language. The integrations are not standardized, which means if you are a data analyst or a CDO and you are trying to use your data to create insight in an organization, it becomes very, very difficult. Where they seem, and you'll see this often in the industry, is where they seem to make great strides is in things that are contained. So you can have a very, very good view on data from your customer perspective, because there's a lot of policies that were brought in to manage customer data. So you see on the big chunky things, we are getting better as organizations to exploit our data. But if you want to run your organization, I'm talking global, big, chunky organizations. If you want to run an organization on the value of your data, it's not just your customer data that's important. It's all of your back office data that's important. And that's where companies are falling flat. They do not have their back office data clean. It's not properly stored. It's not properly integrated. It's not properly available. And I think there's a huge amount of work that needs to be done there. And I also think that this is where the ambition seems to dry up in big organizations when it comes to the back office data, because it's not that visible and they don't quite yet see the value in that.
Yeah, it's not that flashy. And you talked about a lot of different things in this last answer. So what, of course, I think most of the questions or the drive is from the business, or the business, whoever that might be, if it's finance, but they want to have analytics. They don't really care about how it's built or how it works, where it comes from. It just needs to work, and they want to see the nice flashy dashboards showing them where we can save some money, or and I understand that, but as you say, it's not that easy. And companies are maybe like they call it spaghettis. They just build things on top of things. Maybe because of a lot of middle managers asking for dashboards, and there's not really a bigger picture. What do you think is the solution to tackle this? Because it is not flashy. Maybe companies are not finding money to support these kind of things. So how should they approach it then?
Yeah, it's interesting. The way I see the data landscape today is probably if you were to compare them with informal settlements or favelas, the way that they build cities or suburbs that do not have town planning. I think if you were to look at data through that lens, you would see that the data landscape really does look like that. Which means no one knows what's going to happen when you break down a wall, or when you do something. It's all very unstable. It's all keeping itself alive, but no one knows what will happen. So the only way to do this is to tackle this subject by subject. So, and this is what I said in my previous answer. You see that this has been done for certain things, very much on customers. So we have a lot of knowledge, and we can build fantastic dashboards on customers. But there's obviously a lot more in an organization than that. So in the end, for me, I think it comes down to accepting the fact that if you want to really be data driven, you have to have your town planning sorted, and you have to re-engineer your town or your city to conform to this new structure that you want. And that is not going to deliver you money in the first quarter or the second quarter, maybe not even by the fifth year. It requires a rigorous investment without necessarily looking for a return on investment in the very short term. And the challenge we have is that organizations in general struggle to spend money on something that won't give a return within the first quarter or second quarter.
Yeah.
And when you span years, that becomes extremely difficult to get done. So what needs to happen is that you have to have this ambition at the board level that says we will clean the data and we will do this rigorously. You will give your architects the power that they need to enforce development standards. You will install review boards and make sure that things get done properly. And I personally think you need to remove business to a degree from IT again. I think the lines have become too blurred, and it's getting very confusing between choosing for priorities and doing the right thing and doing the thing that's needed now.
Mm-hmm. So as you are building a house, you need to have the electric system and the sewer and everything in order. You know it's gonna probably go bad in maybe 10 years, but you're not doing anything about it because it's not a problem right now. And if you
Right.
wait till the last moment, it's probably going to be more expensive. But also, as technology is evolving and you get more and more data, is it really possible to be ready for what's coming next? Or should we just move with the flow and do our best in what we can do right now? And also, let's answer that one first.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very difficult question to answer, because yes, you can. I mean, that's what we've been doing for the last 40 years, right? I mean, we've just been tacking on to stuff that we've had. Like you said, I started my career in 1996, and back then, the company I was working for, there was one computer which was a big AS400, and that ran everything, which meant that the control over development was done very tightly. There was a strong gatekeeping happening around that machine, so things didn't happen on that machine without the say so of basically the CIO and the architects that were responsible for that system. What you are seeing today is that it's so dispersed, it's so federalized, that it's extremely difficult for your architecture competence to keep control. And I think the only way to get this done is to give that control back, and trust that they will build you a solution that will work. But that has the reverse, and that means that we have to look at who we make architects and how we equip them to be architects. We see a trend where people grow from a developer into an architect, and that is good because you want people in IT that understands how the lowest level of systems work. But where we, I think, are failing is we are not providing our top level architects the opportunity to fully understand the businesses that they're working in. And I don't know what the solution is. I've got no crystal ball, but I think what would really help is if we were to identify architects or people that could become architects early on in the process, and that you pull them out of IT and put them into the business to go run a piece of business or to just be part of a piece of business, completely disconnect from IT, so that they start understanding how that business works. Because I think if you understand how the business works, what the driver for the business is, I think you will be a much, much, much better architect.
Yeah, because a lot of times the architect, they want a perfect solution, which is a technical solution.
Correct.
And then the business sees all these problems, especially from you're working with people and they need to put in the data, and then they need to be perfect in how the data is put in. And also from their perspective, it doesn't need to be perfect, as maybe with 10% you get or 80% you'll get most out of it already.
Right.
So I think that's an interesting thought to make architects more aware of the business, but also it's not, you can put a perfect system there, you can put a perfect architecture, but if the organization starts to use it, it will go bad in no time again. What's your
True.
take on that?
True. I think it's true that architecture, and I think to be honest, it's the role of architecture to put down the perfect picture, right? I mean, that is I think exactly what they should be doing. I think where we need to make sure things are correct is that there's a compromise that takes place when you are actually building that perfect picture, because it's the same, like you said, when you're building a house. What the architect put down on paper doesn't always work when you come to site, and things don't always work out, and you have to compromise. So you make some
Hmm.
changes. But I think this brings me to the next challenge that we have, and that's the fact that I think, especially for data, I think data engineering has been taken out of the hands of IT and it's been moved more to the business side. To me, that's almost equating it to saying I get an architect to design my house, and then me with no experience being an office worker, I start building it. Sure, I'll build something that looks kind of like it, but it probably won't be safe. It probably won't be correct. It probably won't last. So I think we need to, other than educating architects to fully understand that the business area that they're working on, we also need to bring engineering back and make it professional, make them accountable, and and introduce controls every step of the way to make sure that what has been built is in line with the specification from the architect. Even if there's a compromise, that compromise has to be agreed and said, this is the way we're doing it, and you have to accept the risk of not doing it the way it was designed, or adjust your design. And I think what we are seeing is that we have almost a vice versa problem. So the architects don't know the business well enough, and the data engineers don't know IT well enough. And that is causing huge problems in your data world today.
So you say that the data club is more on the business side than on the IT side, in your opinion. They're not
Correct.
really developers or technical people, in your
No,
understanding, then, or
no, no.
how do you?
My experience is in the last couple of years, whenever I speak to people, let's say that build you your Power BIs or build you your Click reports or whatever that might be, um, they would be hard pushed to explain to you how a database works. Um, and to me, that is a fundamental issue in how we train these kinds of people. In order to be a good data engineer, you need to first be a good IT engineer. You don't have to be the best IT engineer, but you need to understand the principles. You need to understand the impact of what it is that you are doing. What we are often seeing is massive data sets being analyzed with very inefficient search criteria. These kinds of things will not happen if you are educated in database management, if you understand how primary keys and foreign keys work, if you understand the engineering of data systems. So that to me is one of the big challenges. And the reason this is happening is because people in the business want to move really fast. They want to get their shiny toys out and they want to make their reports, which is understandable.
Mm-hmm.
And IT is being seen as, you are slowing me down, you're not allowing me to do what I want to do. And you've seen this movement of business taking on IT more and more under their wing, almost having shadow IT. And that shadow IT is great for a couple of weeks, for a couple of months. But then you have to bring it back into the IT and say, okay, now that we know this works, we've proved this out, let's go and engineer something that's going to last. But that second step is very seldom happening. It stays with these little point solutions that are engineered inside the business by the data engineers. And when it comes to upgrading or replacing software or doing all kinds of things like that, then suddenly everything comes tumbling down and nothing works anymore. And often also poorly documented. So that's the challenge we have to address, I think.
Yeah, that's not the flashy part, of course.
No,
It's
it's
like
not. Yeah,
having to clean up the dishes after cooking, right? It's
yeah,
nobody really likes to do it, but it needs to be done. Otherwise, we're gonna end up with a mess.
exactly.
So, where do you see the market going currently?
Yeah, at the moment, I'm still seeing that movement towards business. I'm not seeing it moving in the way that I would like to see it. And I mean, there are things out there. I mean, that is going to help us make this better, right? Uh, you see, I think it's called. There's a solution called out there called Data EQ. Calibra, obviously, everyone knows is well established. So you see that there are vendors in the market who is trying to glue back the business and the IT side of things together. Um, I think I really think that that is going to be the way that we're going to solve this messy data problem. We see a lot of talk about data products lately, and I think that is very powerful. I think if a business unit goes and they go into their data and they look and they say, what is the data that's most important to me and the data that I most often provide to other people, if they productize those data products and they make it a service that's reusable and sustainable, I think you will start seeing a business evolving that's a lot more agile than they are today. And then you won't have this tension between IT and analytics people with regards to speed of delivery. Because if every business unit goes and focuses on making their data products and making their environment stable,
Yeah.
um, and the challenge here is again return on investment, because you are going to make data products not for you. You are making it for other people.
Yeah.
And they have to do the same for you. They have to go, all right, so I don't benefit from making this, but someone else will benefit from making this. And if we all do this, it'll daisy chain into something where you actually get benefit from something that someone else has done. And that's where we need to get to in the data world, is that we make data products not for ourselves, but for other people that can benefit from them, and hope and believe that that favor will be returned one day.
And how do you think we should try and get that done?
I think in the end, for me, it comes down to vision, but also companies empowering people to build the right thing. So it's gonna need, I think, a lot of money to get it right. It's gonna require that you allow people to do the right thing and not come in on budget always, because um, data engineering is one of the most underestimated things in any business. People think that it's fairly straightforward, and they think this because of the way that vendors bring their products into companies. They tell you, look how easy it is. It's even AI, right? They tell you, look how easy this AI is. It's not easy. There's a lot of engineering at the back that needs to happen. So there's a bit of education, I think. We have to educate executive leaders that building correct data engineering costs a lot of money. It's very difficult to get it right. And if you can't get it right within a year, don't stop the project. Keep going, because eventually you will get it right. And once you have it right, then suddenly that maintenance becomes easy. So I think it requires courage, and it requires people to almost invest into something that they don't know what that return will be, and have faith that it will eventually trickle into everything that they do.
So you think let's say if you have a 10-year vision, it would save money? Would that be a driver, or would it be just for doing the right thing?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly believe that if you do this right, you will absolutely earn money from it, right? Because if you are agile on the data front, it is so much easier to buy new companies. It's so much easier to introduce new products. It's so much easier to modify your business model, because everything can be quickly adjusted and modified to work according to your new plans. So yes, I think it will deliver money. Um, but I think it's the way we measure success that needs to be changed. We should not be hoping to see a return on that investment within 1 year or 2 or 3 years. You have to accept the fact that this is a long-term vision. Even if you think about redeveloping an area in a city that was maybe derelict or wasn't in the greatest of shapes, a lot of those projects are done with a leap of faith, and kind of with the idea of, if you build it, people will come and it'll be better.
Yeah.
you can have many models showing you that it'll work, but you can't measure it until the people actually come. And the same thing happens with data. You can show models of benefits, you can show models of revenue increase or cost savings, but it's extremely difficult to prove. And that's where the faith bit comes in.
So it's a little bit about educating management as well as the employees who are not data specialists, making them more data literate, understanding what is the true meaning and what will we be gaining from it in the long run.
Yeah.
But also maybe to put like an enterprise architect maybe at the MT level, put them with the
Yes.
the chiefs. Is that a solution?
That is absolutely a solution. I think architects should be heard, and I think in today's world, architects are not heard. They are often, like you said, they are seen as sitting in a tower and they don't understand the world. I don't think that's a correct reflection. I think most architects have a very good idea of how things work. And I think, yeah, we should listen to them a lot more than we do, include them and trust that they will do the right thing. I think where IT breaks down, that engineering breaks down, is that we don't trust in the advice that we are given. And we should do that much more often, because there are highly skilled people working in IT that knows exactly what they are doing, but should be given the rein to do so.
The business, the management, we don't always know best. It's we should know that if somebody has studied and worked in tech for their whole life, maybe they know more about it than we do.
Yeah, there's a lot of mistrust, and we need to find a way of solving that mistrust.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's mistrust in my opinion, but it's also about the business might feel like architects are not completely understanding them. So yes, I know that this is the technical solution that you have in mind, but we also have other agenda and we also have other ideas that you're not keeping in mind. And even if the architect does keep it in mind, if the business feels like they don't, they will not listen to whatever solution they come up with. So there's a communication problem, I think, there.
Yeah, and this comes back to what I said in the beginning, right? So get the architects to be part of the business, get them to do things that are not IT related, let them learn how it's run. And once they understand how it's run, keep including them in your strategy sessions, keep including them in all things that will impact the IT side of your business. Because if you do, then you have that conversation at the front of the chain instead of having it somewhere in the middle, and it becomes disruptive.
So if you sum it up and you said, what are the dirty little secrets that big data companies or big companies have?
Ooh, tough one. I think it is that data is important on paper only for a lot of people, but when it comes to really engineering it, very few companies do.
Okay. Thank you so much for your insights, Johann, and your opinion on what you have seen from the businesses you worked in. We're gonna end it right here. Perhaps this is we can continue it later on if there's more discussion on this topic. I think it's interesting, and I think there's so many opinions on it, and I think it's very good to keep talking about it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Podcast is available at YouTube, and Spotify will be shared in LinkedIn later as well. Thank you so much, Johann. I wish you a very nice day, a nice weekend, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks very much.